Beyond heartbreak, God's protection in your love story. Perhaps you have prayed like this: Lord, why did you not complete us? I truly love him. You cried and knelt on the ground, your phone screen still on that cold breakup message, your heart aching as if torn open. You thought that if you were sincere enough, if you prayed enough, God would make that person come back. But he didn't come back. You even began to wonder if you had done something wrong, if God was punishing you. But what if I told you that God's non-completion is actually his gentlest protection? Sometimes what he breaks up is not love, but a trap that would destroy you. That night, you cried so hard you couldn't breathe, and God was quietly watching you from above, not without feeling, but with a heavy heart. He saw the future you hadn't seen, saw how far that person's choices would take you from his will. What you couldn't see, he knew it all. You cried out in pain. Why? He arranged in time for what? People see the surface. God sees the heart. You thought it was a loss, but it was God pulling you away from the abyss, like a child clutching a sharp piece of glass, crying and refusing to let go until the father reached out and took it away. The child screamed in pain, but the father knew that the pain of that moment was exchanged for a lifetime of peace. God is that father. He is not trying to deprive you of happiness, but to give you true blessings. That person's departure was not an accident, but a salvation. Perhaps you haven't seen it yet, but one day, when you stand on the path God has prepared for you, you will look back and realize that loss was where grace began. You once prayed for someone to walk with you through life, and God said, I will walk with you through this part first. You asked him to mend that relationship, and he mended your heart. Because God knows that if you are embraced by someone too soon, you might never learn to be embraced by him. He allows relationships to break, not because you are unworthy of love, but because he wants you to first learn true love, the kind of love that comes from God, that does not depend on people and does not fear loss. You don't understand now, but every one of God's denials hides something better. He breaks up two people, not for punishment, but for completion. Perhaps you are still waiting for an explanation, waiting for someone to come back, waiting for a miracle. But God wants to tell you, I have never left. What you have lost will not be more than what I will give you. That breakup was not the end, but a gentle gift of salvation. Because sometimes God not letting you be with that person is actually saving you from wrong love, saving you to return to his heart. Perhaps you once knelt by your bed, tears streaming down your face, asking God, Lord, why did you break us up? Why did I pray so hard, yet still lose him? At that moment, you felt like your whole world had collapsed. Even your faith was shaken. But you didn't know that in places you couldn't see, God was shielding you from a storm. People see outward appearance. God sees the heart. We often rely on feelings, but we don't see where that love will take us. We see gentle words, sweet embraces, temporary security, but God sees that person's coldness, hurt, betrayal, and your torn heart 10 years later. God sees the future you cannot see, so he endures refusing your present prayers. Just as parents will take away candy from their child's hand, not because they don't love them, but because there is poison in it. God says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways. He knows that the person you want now may be the one who will make you cry in the future. He knows that what you think is happiness will actually lead you astray from your destiny. He knows that some right people are actually just for the right time, not the right soul. Think of Abraham. When he sought a wife for Isaac, he did not choose carelessly, but trusted God's guidance. His servant prayed, "Lord, please guide me and prepare a suitable woman for my master's son." So God made Rebekah appear, not by chance, but by destiny. It was a marriage personally embedded in history by God, because God knew that Isaac was to inherit the bloodline of heroes, and his wife must be someone who could walk with him in faith. If Abraham had chosen by feeling, he might have missed the relationship that continued the faith. You thought you missed out on happiness, but God was leading you away from destruction. He would not allow you to be dragged into the mud by the wrong person, because He wants you to stay on the course of your destiny. How many people have been lost in emotions, thinking that love can redeem everything, only to lose themselves in pain? God sees how many tears you would shed for that person, how much grievance you would endure, how many nights you would doubt your worth. Therefore, He would rather break your heart once than let you be destroyed for life. That is not God's punishment, but His mercy. When God closes a door, it is not because He is stingy with happiness, but because He wants to open the window to eternity for you. You are now crying and begging God to make that person come back, but God gently shakes His head because He knows that what you want is comfort, and what He wants to give you is salvation. If you could see the storm in the future, that person you deeply love leaving you in an argument, that person you wholeheartedly gave yourself to betraying you in coldness, you would thank God for His refusal. In the future you cannot see, He is blocking the harm you cannot bear. God's salvation is sometimes not the appearance of a miracle, but a no that you don't understand. Every no from God hides a bigger yes. He didn't let you be with that person, not because you are unworthy, but because He wants to guard your heart so that you can enter the love truly prepared for you. A relationship truly from God will not make you anxious, will not make you distant from His presence, will not make you lose peace. When that love brings you more fear than faith, more doubt than joy, it means God is reminding you that this is not His will. Trust God's plan. Even if it is painful now, you will eventually see His goodness. Because one day, when you hold the hand of the person truly prepared for you, you will understand that all rejections are God's gentle protection. Sometimes God breaks up a relationship you thought was a match made in heaven, but He is actually saving you. You think He is cruel, but in fact, He is the only one who sees the trap. When you cry and ask, "Lord, why didn't you let me be with him?" He silently answers from heaven, "Because that's not the direction I want you to go." In the Bible, Samson's story is almost written for our generation. God gave him astonishing strength, and he was supposed to be a hero to save Israel, but he was infatuated with foreign women, compromising again and again for love, and eventually was captured by lust, had his eyes gouged out by his enemies, and became a laughingstock. The person he loved did not destroy him. His indulgence and lack of discernment were the knife. God did not stop him immediately because He respected free will, but the result was a tragic end. Similarly, Solomon, the king known as the wisest, also fell due to many foreign women. He initially loved God, but gradually deviated under the temptation of love. To please his wives, he built foreign temples, allowing idols to enter the temple, and eventually lost the glory of his kingdom. These stories are not distant history, but God's reminders to us. Some people are not blessings, but temptations. You think that gentleness will make you happier, but it is taking you away from God. You think that relationship will give you love, but it is slowly devouring your soul. We are too easily blinded by emotions, thinking that as long as we love each other, it is enough, but we forget to ask, does this relationship glorify God? God is not stopping you from being loved, but protecting you from being destroyed. He knows that one wrong person is enough to destroy a family. He knows that a wrong marriage will make you lose direction, faith, and even the freedom of your soul. How many people think that as long as I love enough, he will change, but in the end, they only get tears and self-doubt again and again. God doesn't want you to prove loyalty with pain. He wants you to wait for true love with faith. He would rather you hurt for a while than regret for a lifetime. Just like the testimony of that believer, he once thought he had met the person God had prepared for him. They went to church together, prayed together, and even talked about marriage. But in an argument, the other person hit him for the first time. He fled heartbroken, still praying to God to change him. A few months later, he learned that the person was arrested for violent behavior. At that moment, he finally understood that God did not fulfill that relationship, not because he didn't listen to prayers, but because he was protecting him. God had already seen the hidden darkness, but he couldn't see it. God's refusal is often a mercy you cannot see. Perhaps he did not let that person turn back, nor did he let him change, because he knew that if you stayed, you would never be able to leave. He broke your heart to make you wake up. He separated you to set you free. You thought that person could bring you happiness, but in fact, he was leading you away from the light. You thought it was a miss, but it was salvation. So, when you believe in that relationship again in the middle of the night, please don't ask why God didn't let us be together, but thank him. Thank you for not letting me continue to be wrong. True love from God will bring you closer to him, not further away from him. The spouse God has prepared for you will not make you constantly question your worth, but will make you more firmly focused on your mission. He doesn't want you to fall into a relationship maintained by tears, but wants you to live in the peace of his grace. Remember, God's refusal is not an absence, but a salvation. Because when he takes away the person you thought you couldn't lose, he is actually saving you from a silent destruction. His hand may be tearing apart your present attachment, but it is mending your future completeness. God wants to protect you from being united with the wrong person because he knows that a wrong union is more terrifying than loneliness. He would rather you walk alone in the wilderness than fall into the abyss holding the wrong hand. That seemingly cruel separation is actually God's deepest mercy. Have you ever anxiously watched those around you pair up, but you wander alone, your heart full of questions? Why am I still single? Why hasn't God made that person appear yet? Perhaps you think this is loneliness, and you also think you are forgotten, but the Bible tells us that God's timing is never wrong. His plan transcends our vision and even transcends our emotions. Joseph's story is the most real example. He was betrayed by his brothers, became a slave, was falsely accused, and thrown into prison. His life seemed full of setbacks and injustices. But it was these loneliness and hardships that prepared him for an extraordinary moment of elevation, becoming the prime minister of all Egypt, saving countless people, including his own family. If Joseph had been eager to take power before he was mature and experienced, he might not have been able to bear that responsibility. If you are eager to start a relationship before you reach the place God wants you to stand, you might not be able to bear the weight of love. God makes you single not to make you lonely, but to let you, under His guidance, take every step well, build confidence, shape character, and understand yourself. The destined partner does not appear at any time, but at the right time. The person you meet at the wrong time, no matter how beautiful their appearance, may become a trial in your life, not a blessing. Perhaps you haven't met that person yet, not because no one loves you, but because you are still walking on the path God has arranged for you. Perhaps you are experiencing career challenges, spiritual trials, or interpersonal challenges. These are all steps God is taking to shape your destiny. Every period of loneliness, every wait, is God helping you complete the groundwork of your life so that when you meet your true partner, you can stand firm and not be swayed by the storms of the world. Don't compromise because of temporary loneliness. Don't start a relationship prematurely because of social pressure. And don't ignore God's plan because of emotional desires. God is waiting for you to enter your destined position, to let you mature first, stabilize first, and be complete first before you take on the life connection with that person. Perhaps now you are asking in prayer, Lord, why haven't I met him yet? God's response is not silence, but a gentle reminder. My child, you are still in preparation. You must first learn to be complete in me, and then you will have the ability to love and be loved. Therefore, the soul must remember that meeting the right person at the wrong time will also become the wrong person. But at God's perfect time, the person you meet will surely be your destined blessing. Today, your singleness is not a regret, but a period of preparation carefully arranged by God for you. Don't rush to find someone to walk with. First, go to the place God wants you to stand, because when you stand firm and meet your destined partner, you will find that all this waiting is worth it. God's timing is always the most perfect, and your life is also blessed and shaped in this waiting. Have you ever eagerly longed for love, but felt empty and unfulfilled in every relationship? Perhaps you will ask, why hasn't God let me meet that person yet? The Bible gives us the most profound answer. True love must be built on your covenant with God. Marriage is not just the union of two people. It is the most sacred covenant on earth. But the stability of this covenant depends on whether your relationship with God is stable. Looking back at the story of creation, Adam walked with God in the Garden of Eden and managed all things in the garden. This was his intimate relationship with God, in God's perfect plan. Eve was not a compromise for Adam's loneliness, but the partner God prepared for him, because Adam had already learned to find satisfaction and joy from God. If you have not yet learned to be satisfied in God, no matter how ideal a partner or how sweet a relationship, it cannot fill the emptiness in your heart. In modern society, too many people treat love as salvation and romance as a source of satisfaction, but they forget that only God can truly heal loneliness. You think love can make you complete, but you often find that no matter how deep the emotion, it cannot replace God's place in your life. God wants you to first make a covenant with Him, to let you understand that your joy, your value, and your security all come from Him, not from any person. When you learn to be satisfied, loved, and built up in God, you can then love others with a healthy and stable heart, instead of relying on taking or compromising. This is also why some people, even though they meet seemingly perfect people, always feel that something is not right because they haven't learned to be complete in God. Today, God calls you to put Him first in your life, to let Him be your most important partner and reliance. first establish a covenant with God, and then enter into a human covenant. In this way, the love and marriage you experience will not become a burden, but a blessing. The love you give will take root and sprout under God's protection, bearing the fruit of life. Let God be the first love of your life, and your soul will find that all waiting is worthwhile, and all loneliness is a gift prepared by God with love. Have you ever felt lost, lonely, or even doubted that God cares about you because you are single? But the Bible tells us that God sometimes calls us to singleness not as a punishment, but for a higher mission. Look at Paul. He chose to be single and dedicated his whole heart to the gospel, becoming a blessing to generations. He did not rely on the companionship and comfort of marriage, but glorified God with his own life and served all people. A spiritual perspective tells us that God is shaping us into vessels of witness in every stage of singleness. There are also many real stories in modern times where a young missionary, during his singleness, invested his time and energy in gospel work, not only maturing spiritually himself, but also influencing countless souls to turn to God. He once said that loneliness is not terrible because God's presence far exceeds any human companionship. Your singleness is not a failure, nor is it a blank, but a glorious chapter in God's plan, a period of preparation for you to become a blessing and a witness. When you use your single time to pray, serve, learn, and grow, your life will be like a lampstand, shining on those around you, letting them see the joy and satisfaction of relying on God. God is not making you lonely, but making you a vessel of His glory, making your life a living testimony. Every lonely night, every moment of waiting is God's careful training, so that your heart does not rely on the outside world, but fully trusts Him. When you learn to be content in singleness and free in God's love, you will find that this stage of life is full of meaning, even more profound than any relationship. Remember, what God values is your loyalty to Him. Your singleness is a precious moment in His hands, the fertile ground for your spiritual growth, and the starting point for you to bless others in the future. Let us no longer see singleness as a defect, but as a stage for God's glory to be lived out through us, so that every lonely heart can be filled with hope and joy because of Him. Have you ever been anxious, frustrated, or even doubted if God is truly in charge because you are waiting for love? The core of faith is not to make God act according to our will, but to learn to trust in His timing. When you pray in waiting and completely surrender your emotions to God, you will find your heart gradually at peace and anxiety replaced by His peace. Prayer is not only confession, but also a channel for building an intimate relationship with God, letting you understand that He sees further and more comprehensively than you do. When you invest your time in service, whether it is church ministry, social welfare, or daily care, the needs of others will fill your heart and allow you to learn and grow in singleness, cultivating patience, humility, and love. These are invaluable qualities that cannot be replaced in future relationships. Surrendering to God's sovereignty means letting go, no longer trying to control the development of every relationship, no longer forcing the progress of love, but letting God be in charge of your life. His arrangements are often more perfect than we imagine. Waiting is not a waste, but a process of God shaping a chapter in your life. Every lonely night, every longing in your heart is Him carefully carving your spiritual life. When you learn to trust in waiting, you will find that God's plan far exceeds your understanding. He makes you gradually mature in growth, service, and reliance, preparing you for future partnerships and a more abundant life. I encourage you to seize the present, turn waiting into a classroom for learning trust, and let your heart rely more on God than on people. At the same time, I invite you to share your testimonies, prayers, and experiences in waiting in the comments so that we can encourage each other and witness God's wonderful work in our lives together. Have you ever been heartbroken after a breakup? Your heart full of questions like, why didn't God let us be together? Perhaps you can't understand, but God breaks some relationships not for punishment, but to establish a new foundation. Just as a grapevine must be pruned to bear more and sweeter fruit, God also reshapes our lives through brokenness. We think we lose love, but we may gain growth, spiritual maturity, and a future more in line with His will. Broken relationships teach us to rely, no longer placing our satisfaction on others, but returning to God and experiencing His eternal faithfulness. Although pain is difficult, it has a deep spiritual meaning. It makes our hearts more like Christ's and more able to experience His mercy and grace. God is replacing. What He takes away is not to make you lonely, but to prepare you to receive the blessings He has arranged for you. Every disappointment, every missed opportunity is actually God's gentle guidance, reminding you that true security, true completeness is not in anyone's hands, but in Him. If your heart can receive this, you will find that brokenness is not the end, but God is quietly paving a new path to joy for you. Are you still silently weeping at night, recalling that painful relationship, your heart filled with confusion and bewilderment? Perhaps you have been trying to forget, but you find that the more you try to escape, the more the wound hurts. God wants you to know that true healing is not escaping, but facing it, surrendering the pain in your heart to Him. Let Him heal your broken heart. First, you must admit the pain. This is not weakness, but a brave beginning. Don't ignore your wounds, and don't tell yourself it's okay, because the Lord sees all your tears and understands your deep pain. Second, pray to God with your heart, surrendering your grievances, disappointments, and confusion to Him. Believe that He will hear and respond to your cries. Next, forgive that person, not for them, but to release your heart from resentment so that your emotions are no longer entangled by the past. Forgiveness does not mean you condone their harm, but allows God's love to flow within you, allowing your heart to gradually regain peace. Then completely surrender to God. Let Him heal your soul, use His gentleness to soothe your wounds, and rebuild confidence and joy. The Bible tells us that He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He understands every tear and values every broken heart. Experiencing all this, you will find that God does not make you forget past pain, but makes you no longer controlled by pain, allowing you to move forward with peace and hope. Your heart will be strengthened by His presence. You will believe in love again, and you will see the light in life again. God's healing is gentle and thorough. As long as you are willing to face your wounds and surrender your pain to Him, you can rise from loss and let your life regain its radiance under His guidance. God does not make you forget, but makes you no longer hurt, making your heart complete, free, and full of hope because of Him. Perhaps you are reflecting on that relationship that didn't last, your heart filled with confusion and loss. You once asked God, why wasn't it Him? Perhaps you thought He ignored your desires, but today I want to tell you that God's love is more divine than any relationship. He breaks up what you thought was happiness, not as punishment, but as salvation. Looking back at your journey, everything God has done in your life is to guide you towards true peace and completeness. He understands your heart better than you do, and He sees the future path more clearly than you do. He would rather let you be temporarily disappointed than let you fall into destruction. Perhaps today, what you need is not a person, but to be embraced by God first, to let His love fill every broken corner of your heart, so that your heart is no longer empty due to loss. Surrender your pain, your desires, and your expectations to Him, and let His gentleness heal the wounds in your heart. He is willing to give you peace, to let you see hope in waiting, and to experience His presence in loneliness. Now, close your eyes and pray to God, asking Him to reveal His time and will to give you strength and comfort so that you can follow His guidance in any relationship choices. Remember, God's arrangements are far more profound and beautiful than you can imagine. When He doesn't let you be with that person, He is actually protecting you and leading you towards a more complete future. Your story is still continuing. Your heart can still be filled with love, and your life is still being carefully carved in God's hands. Share your testimony. Let us intercede for each other. And subscribe to the channel to grow together in God's love, because He loves you more deeply than you can imagine. If this helped you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs it. Drop a thanks in the comments, and we'll pray for your healing journey. May God give you peace. Thank you for watching.